Okay, we're up to Mem Beis Amid Beis, and we're going back over a brisa of a Mishnah in the Goyim that said three people take haircuts. Three people take haircuts: the Nazir, the Mitzayra, and the Leviim, and all of them has to be with a razor, and all of them, if you leave 2 hairs over, lo yasa klum. And all of them, if you left 2 hairs over, lo yasa klum. So there's 2 parts to this daf. Actually, 3 parts to the daf. First part is pretty geschmack, and not so. Latter part is a little challenging. Let's see the Gemara. Amamar. Kulam shegilchu shaloi bitar, and all of those 3, the Leviim, the Nazir, and the Mitzora, when they perform their shavings without a razor, or they leave over 2 saros, like asav like klum. They didn't do anything. They haven't accomplished anything. They weren't mekayim the mitzvah of giluach. Each one is a mitzvah of giluach. Again, the Levium is once for all time, and the Nazir and the Mitzayra part of their process. So Amar of Achya bar Berei de Rav Ika Zaysei Meres. You see from here the concept from Nazir that Ruboy Kikuloi Midaraisa. When Ruba Kikula is Midaraisa. Now, what, guys? We all know that you go after Roiv. Give me a minute to pontificate. We know there's a din of Roiv. We go after Roiv. It's a huge sugi throughout Shas, and we know it comes up after the pasuk Achrei Rabim Lahatais. You go after the Rabim to go ahead and Lahatos, literally to incline. So, best din, you'll always note, is always an odd number. Best din will never be an even number. Best din of 3, best din of 23 for capital punishment. Best din Gadol in Yerushalayim was 71, because when you go have a psak din, you always have to have one that is machriya, that will push it over the other side. And so therefore it's always odd. Achrei Rabim Lahatais. We said midaraisa, therefore batal b'roiv. If you have a taruvis that's mixed together, you have 2 pieces of kosher and 1 piece of treif, it will be kosher. We're machmir with nice and tam, or birya, or other halachas. Midaraisa, we say achrei Lahatais. Right? There is a time that what you do not go after roiv. In other words, you would think by a Nazir, if he cuts off roiv of his hair, that constitutes a haircut. The majority of his hair is cut off. You would think that constitutes a haircut. But you see that what? You do not go after it by Nazir. You have a pasuk by Nazir that tells you don't do that. We'll see the pasuk in a second. What does the pasuk say? What does the pasuk say? Now, there's an extra word. It says, when the Nazir, if immediately, suddenly, on us, it happens that he's tamei tumas meis, the tamei roish nizroi, the gilach roishoi, b'yom tarasai, he'll take a haircut, b'yom tarasai, b'yom ashvi yigalchenu. So you have a repeat. It says that after 7 days, he takes a haircut, and it says again yigalchenu. So why the double lashon? It says it says v'gilach, and then it says yigalchenu. This comes to teach me that there can't be any hair. There has to be even 2 hairs. So it's the meres ruba kekula midaraisa. So all the chol terakula that roiv is midaraisa. Ruba kekula is midaraisa midamai midigoli rachmana gabe nazir b'yom mashvi yigalchena. And again, yigalchena is a double lashon because it says v'gilach. Yigalchena is a double lashon. Hachahu da'adika kuloi. Over there by the Nazir is the hakpada till you cut off all the other hair. Over there by the Nazir is the hakpada that you cut off all the other hair. Alma, but all over, if you don't, then ruba kikuloi, if you do roiv, will be considered kikuloi. So it's very interesting, fellas. Halacha that you learn from a Nazir Tameh, the din of ruba kikuloi. This is the source for ruba kikuloi. Fascinating. Okay, so that's a side point. Now, this pasuk has to be sourced is speaking the Yamas that immediately that it was an inus. I was speaking about a Nazir Tameh, that the Nazir was all of a sudden that tumah came upon them. Maskler B'Yosef Reb Chanina, how's it possible for you to learn out the halacha of a Nazir Tahir if he leaves over 2 hairs? He's not mekayim the mitzvah of giluach. Hi Nazir b'tamei kasiv. That's written by a Nazir Tameh. So Rabbi Yosef Reb Chanina said, how could you learn out a Nazir Tameh tahar from a Nazir Tameh? How you learn a nazar tahar from a nazar tamei. Let's see Taisers. Maskala Rabbi Yosef Bar Chanina, Hai b'nazar tamei kasif. That pasuk of Yigal Chena is written by a nazar tamei. Dichsiv b'yom asher Yigal Chena, the mashma kuloi. It's mashma all is here. All is here. Ubraisa mishtama and actually it's a mishnah. In the Goyim is speaking af b'nazar tahar, but speaking even b'nazar tahar. Shtei saris ma'akvais, that two saris will be ma'akiv. So how can you apply the halacha that occurs by a nazar tamei to a nazar tahar? On that, the Gemara comments, Machgul and Marav in Eretz Yisrael, they scoffed, they laughed at Rabbi Yosef Bar Chanina. You mean to tell me that there's no parallel between the nazar tahar and the nazar tamei? What are you talking about? Michti. Nazar tamei, the bitar minalan. Where do you know a nazar tamei is bitar? How do you know that it has to be what? That it has to be that the nazar tamei has to get rid of his hair using a razor? Mi nazar tahar, yalaf. Right? He learns it from nazar tahar. Just like in nazar tahar, we just had the whole sugya, right? Where do you learn nazar from? That a nazar, it says we inferred it that it says on all the days of his nazirus, like nazar li'av al roishai. So therefore, Rabbi said, if the days of nazirus should be makbid that it should be mavar al roishai, mashmer the days after nazirus, it should be. So therefore, dafka b'tar. And so therefore, we learn that nazar tamei from nazar tahar. The comments to Gemara, if that's the case, that you learn that nazar tamei from nazar tahar, right? Therefore, nazar tahar v'leila from nazar tamei, right? We can go ahead and conversely learn out nazar tahar from nazar tamei. Matami ki shayir states ares leikom of it. Just like nazar tamei, as we ascertain, Yigal Chenu has to cut off all his hair. Hachanami by nazar tahar, ki shayir states ares v'leikom of it. So again, we have a source for this din that even though we have a source for this din, and we extrapolate a halacha from this din. The din is that it says by nazar tamei Yigal Chena, you have to cut off all his hair. And by nazar tahar, we have to call this off all his hair. You'll have a kasha. How can you learn that nazar tamei tahar from nazar tamei? It's not a problem. We learn that nazar tamei from nazar tahar. The Indian that you need a razor, and therefore, and also along the way, we learned out that we were able to go ahead and infer the din of rubai kekulai over here by nazar is not rubai kekulai. Mashenkin, the rest of the Torah ruba would be kekulai. The Gemara now concludes to the Mishnah with a few series of questions. Why Rabbi? Nazar shegilach. A nazar goes ahead and he takes a haircut. Okay, the nazar goes ahead, he takes a haircut. Makes a lot of sense. That's what he's supposed to do. He takes a haircut, and what happens? The shayish shtei savos, and he leaves over 2 hairs. So he wasn't makayim the mitzvah of giluach, right? He wasn't makayim the mitzvah. He waits and somach roishai, and now more hair grows back. And now he goes back and cuts off the original 2. So what's the din? Mahu. Mi ma'akve. There's the 2 saris that he left over, right? Is ma'akiv the glachas. Oiloi. In other words, do you consider the fact that he has more hair on his head now that the giluach is not a giluach? Or do we say that no, he now was mekayim mitzvah giluach when he left them over in the first place? In other words, the shaila seems to be when he cuts off his hair, there can't be any hair, or no, the mitzvah is he has to cut off those 2 hairs. And even though there's other hair now, if he cuts off those 2 hairs, which originally were part of his naziris, it would be what? It would be a good giluach. The Gemara doesn't answer that shaila, but it asks another shaila. Boy Rava, nazar shegilach v'iniach shtei saros. He goes ahead, he takes a haircut, and he leaves over the 2, so he wasn't kind of mitzvah giluach. Then the gilach achas, he cuts off 1, and there's 1 left. The nishra achas, and the 1 left falls out, right? And the one that's left, what? It falls out. Let's see the way the Rosh learns the shaila, guys. Look at the Rosh. The gilach echad v'nishra echad mahu. Mi aminon even like gilach ela echad loy kayim mitzvah giluach. Do we say since he cut off only 1 hair, he did not fulfill the mitzvah of shaving? By Dilma kimin the bishah shehiskul legaleach hayulu beisaros. Since at the time he began, he had the shear kayim mitzvah giluach. he was Mekayim what? The mitzvah of what? Of Giluach. Okay. Shaila. He has 2 hairs. That's the mitzvah of Giluach. If he would have cut off one and he would have cut off the second one, he would have done the job. He cut off one, and then the other one fell out. So he didn't cut off the second one. So why do we say? Do we say since he cut off one, he was Mekayim the mitzvah of Giluach, right? Or do we say that no, he didn't cut off both of them, right? Right? Do we say that he didn't cut off both of them? Since he only cut off one, he wasn't Mekayim the mitzvah. It's a fascinating shaila. How do you view it? Okay, that's the Gemara shaila. Now the Gemara asks incredulously. The Gemara says the following. One second, I'm not exactly sure about this. Says the Gemara. Amalei Rav Achim Dif Ravina. Gilach Sa'ara Kami Boy Leila Rava. Right. It's not possible for a person to cut off all his hair at once. And therefore, when he left over 2 hairs, he has the mitzvah of Giluach. Now, when he cut off one of the hairs and leaves one over, l'chayr, it's clear that what? He was Yaitza, his chiv of Giluach. In other words, if he began cutting his hair, let's say he had 10 hairs in total. So he cut off 8, and now he cuts off 9. So l'chayr, at that point in time, he was Yaitza the mitzvah. He had the share of Giluach, the 2, and you don't have to count each hair individually, and he cut off that one. So l'chayr, what was Rabbi Shaila? Pashit what? He would be Yaitza. Ela Ema, here's Rabbi Shaila. You have 2, but you didn't cut off the first one. Noshra Achas, the first one fell out by itself. The Gilach Achas. And what? And then he cut off the second one. Are you Mekayim the mitzvah what? Of Giluach or not? That's the Shaila. Okay, let's see the Rush again over here. Says the Rush, Golach Sar Mi Boile. Milsa the Pshitahi, the Kayim mitzvahs Giluach. In our scenario, he only had 10 hairs, and he cut off 9. Of course, he was Mekayim the mitzvah of Giluach. Kivin the Betchilas Hiskalachas, Hayoloi Kedei Giluach. Since at the beginning of his Giluach, he had the share of 2, he's Mekayim the mitzvah. So it can't be the Shaila was if he cuts off the first one and then the second one fell out. That can't be the Shaila. Ella says the Rosh, what's the Shaila? Ema Noshra Echad, one fell out, the Gilach Echad, Mahu. The Kshebol Galeach, when he comes to take the haircut, he didn't have the share. Okay? He didn't have the share. So what does the Gemara say? Amalei. So Rabbi told him, I guess Rabbi said to Ravina, retorted back to Rav Achami Difti, right? He retorted back, Giluach Enkan Seya Enkan. If he doesn't have here, he doesn't have Giluach. If he doesn't have here, he doesn't have Giluach. Says the Gemara, 1 second. It really makes no sense. What do you mean? What do you mean? Seir Enkan. If Seir Enkan, Giluach Yeshkan. If he doesn't have here, then you Mekayim the mitzvah of Giluach. In other words, the whole purpose of Giluach is to get rid of the hair. So you're telling me if he doesn't have hair, he doesn't have Giluach. So Adarabba, if he doesn't have hair, of course it's gone. You only have 1 hair left. He was Mekayim the mitzvah of Giluach. So Hachi Kamar, Afa Pisha Seir Enkan, right? Even though Seir Enkan, mitzvah Giluach Enkan, since at the beginning, Teglachas Arishain Shai Beisarais, he had 2, and now he wants to go Edwan and cut them, and he doesn't have the 2. He wasn't Mekayim the mitzvah of Giluach. So in other words, in order to Mekayim the mitzvah of Giluach, you have to cut off 2 hairs. So the guy is about to cut off 2 hairs. The first one falls off, and only has 1. So since he didn't cut off 2, right? He doesn't have the mitzvah of Giluach. So that's the more it concludes. Even though at the end of the day, guys, he's not going to have any hair left. Since he didn't cut off 2 hairs, he's not Mekayim the mitzvah of Giluach. Okay, Kishmak. Nazir shechoyfei, a Nazir is shampooing his hair. Umefasfeis, or you have a question? Yeah.
Is he no longer a Nazir if he can't take that haircut?
He wasn't Mekayim the mitzvah of Giluach.
But everything, but he brings his karbanos and everything else goes?
Again, we said, what's the mitzvah? We had a machlokes earlier. The only one who says that Tiglachas is makevis is Rebbe Eliezer. Everyone said that once you brought the karbanos, right, Remember, we had a machlokes, which carbon is the one that frees you? It's the
Right.
chassid that frees you, or the oila, or the shlamim. The only one that said that tiglachas is ma'akev would be Rebbe Eliezer. Good. That was the mamas earlier in the Mishnah. Okay, now.
If he was shaving, he's in the process of shaving his head, and while he's shaving his head, 3 hairs fell off his head that he didn't shave, but they fell off on their own. That wouldn't be considered shaving.
Again, it seems to be that you had it cut off 2 hairs. That's what it seems to say. What's in 3 and 2? 2 is the shear of giluach. Do the mitzvah of giluach. Again, in the mitzvah of giluach, you need 2. If you notice,
but that's because he left it. That's because they were 2 that he never cut off.
If you shave them, you would be good. In other words, let's say you shaved 1 and other 2 fell out, you would be mekayim the mitzvah of giluach. That's the first part of the Gemara. What was the first shaila? He has 2 hairs, right? Right. He cuts off 1 and 1 falls out. You're yaitza. The shaila is where the shaila is where 1 falls out and then he cuts off the second one. So since he didn't have the share of giluach, he didn't have 2, he didn't have the mitzvah of giluach. That's the answer. But according to your scenario of 3, he would be yaitza. In other words, if he cut off 2 and left 1, the you'd be yaitza. Okay. Says the Gemara, he can go ahead and shampoo his hair, he can part his hair, but he can't brush his hair or comb his hair. Okay, there's a Gemara in Masechta Shabbos where we have a famous machlokes between Reb Shimon and Reb Yehuda throughout the Masechta, where a davish a miskavin is also or muta. So, for example, you go ahead and you're moving a bench from one place to another. You want to transfer it from point A to point B, and as you schlep the bench along, it's going to make grooves in the ground, which would be similar to the malach of chayresh, of plowing. Says Reb Shimon, you pata, because davish she'ei miskavin. Says Reb Yehuda, you'd be chayiv. Over here, when the nazir is washing his hair, even though hair might come out, it's a davish she'ei miskavin. So Pashtus, our Mishnah says that a nazir could go ahead and shampoo his hair or part his hair, is going according to the opinion of Reb Shimon, who holds davish she'ei miskavin would be mutter. And then the question is, so then why can't he brush his hair? Also, when he brushed his hair, he's not mechavin for it coming it out. Says the Mish Gemara, chayfi from phosphates money. Who is that? Reb Shimoni. Dama davish she'ei miskavin is mutter. A davish she'ei miskavin is mutter. Avaloi sayrik, but not sayrik. Also l'Rabbanan. I found it fascinating. Anytime you bring in this machlokes, you always say Reb Yehuda. Right? Anytime you bring in this machlokes, you say Reb Yehuda. I think this is just another example of Nazir being a Masechta that was not edited or just Mishuna. Because it's interesting, fellas, if you look at the Mefirish, right? If you look at the Mefirish, 4 lines from the bottom, that's the Rashi. Asan, and he says the Reb Yehuda, Dama Davashem Miskaven is Asa. He says it in the Mefirish, he doesn't say Rabbanan, he says Davashem Miskaven. He says Rabbi Yehuda. He says Rabbi Yehuda, not Rabbanan. Anyway, I just find it fascinating. Says the Gemara, back in the Gemara. The reason why he's able to shampoo his hair and part his hair, because even if the hair falls out, he wasn't mechavim for it, it's mutter. Avaloi sayrek asan le Rabbanan. So Reish Rabbanan, V'seif Rabbanan, we know for symmetry's purposes, we know we're always supposed to be what? Always supposed to be the same Tana. So, but over here we're going to Tanoim, and for the Gemara, and for the Gemara, Amarabba Kula Reb Shimon. It's all Reb Shimon. Kalasayrik leheser nimin midudalis miskaven. Says Reb Shimon, Kalasayrik. Anyone who goes ahead and brushes his hair or combs his hair, the purpose is to remove hairs that are midudalim, that are attached or loose. So in other words, that you are mechavim for, that you're mechavim for. The Rush speaks out something very interesting. I think it's nice. The whole sugi of davashem miskavin is predicated upon if it's not a psik reisha. The Lashon Masechta Shabbos is psik reisha. If you cut off the head of a chicken, it's going to die. You weren't mechavim to cut off the head; it doesn't make a difference. So even if you brush your hair, right, it's mashma. If you part your hair like this or shampoo your hair, not necessarily is the hair going to come out. But if you brush your hair and comb your hair, There's no way of avoiding that. That would be a psik reisha. And Reb Shimon's moida psik reisha of layamas that it would not be permitted. So therefore, the Mishnah would be in Gansin totally according to Reb Shimon. Right, the first part according to Reb Shimon, Dav Shem Miskav and Smuta, and the latter part psik reisha according to the Rosh, it would be. But even Reb Shimon would be mother. You can't do it. Now we have a machlokes. We have machlokes. Reb Yishmael loimer layachav. Person should not shampoo his hair. Atana said you can shampoo your hair. Period. He said you can't shampoo your hair with adama. Well, you can't if they shemasheres esaseya because it goes the head in and removes the hair, right? And that would be like a psik reisha. It removes the hair. So iboiluhu. The Gemara has the following shaila. Iboiluhu. The Gemara has the following shaila. The reason why you can't shampoo your hair according to Yishmael is the gersa mifnei shi mashris esaseya and it, meaning the adama, the key word being it, the adama goes ahead and removes it. Or the key word is not shehi, don't be garish shehi, and therefore, no matter what. So therefore, my mafkamina, going to ikka adama, you have adama, the loy masra, that would not take out your hair. So according to the gersa, that shehi masris, that adama takes out your hair. If you know for sure you have adama that would not take out your hair, that would be permitted. According to the lashon that you take out the he, mashris, then even though the adama would not take out your hair, we're going there any shampooing because of the contingency that it might take out your hair. So that would be the nafkamina between the two, between mashris or shehi mashris. Let's see it inside. It says the Gemara, boiluhu, shehi mashris, shehi, the being word shehi, that this particular shampoo, this particular earth takes out your hair. Tanan, idilma mfnei hamashris tanan is what that it is mashris. My nafkamina kigoin the adama delay masra. Iyam mfnei shi mashris tanan heichedi adin delay masra shapir, like we just spoke out. If you know for sure this adama would not go ahead and remove your hair, it would be permitted. Iyam mfnei hamashris, right? Klal. If you're going to tell me that it is mashris, even though this one is not, we be geyser that you can't go ahead and use any of them. So we want to know what exactly is the girsa in the Mishnah, and the Gemara answers teku. It tishbi yitaritz kushas nabayis. We have to wait for Eliyahu to come and add to his list of questions that he's going to have to go ahead and answer. Okay, we've dealt now with the three halachas of Nazir. The two we dealt with the halacha of drinking. We dealt with the halacha of cutting hair, and now we're going to get to the third is of the Nazir, which is he's not allowed to be metamal l'mesim, and it's a really interesting shaila whether Nazir can metamal l'mesim. Okay, and we're going to deal with that today and tomorrow, and it's great. Nazir shahaya shaisa yayin kalayin. The Nazir is drinking wine the whole day. The guy gets up in the morning, he's the Nazir. He says, "I know I'm a Nazir," starts drinking wine. Right? In a chayv alachas, you don't be chayv once, one malchus. Amrullah, they see him drinking, they say al tishta, and then he stops, and then they say al tishta, ushaisa each time, and chayv alachas viachas. Each hasra will be machalik, right? Each time he's warned, will divide up that is chayv on each and every one. He's taking a very large, long haircut. In a chayv alachas. You don't be chayav once. If you tell him al tegalach, go. Do not take a haircut. Do not take a haircut. In fact, what he does take a haircut. Then chayav kolachas v'yachas. He be chayav one on each and every one. Again, that's slowly machalik. So just like it would be by shtia, so too by haircut. Final din, and this is the one that we're going to focus on. Hayimetame lemesim kol hayoyim. Ein chayiv ela achas. He's chayiv only once. Omru loy al tetame, v'hu metama, and then he goes ahead. Let's say he's in a cemetery, and he's tummy, and then he comes out, and you say al tetame, and he goes back in. He goes al tetame goes out, comes back in. Each time he does that, chayiv al kolachas v'achas, he be chayiv in each and every one. Now this is a huge chiddush, fellas. Obviously. Because he is in a state of tumah. In other words, when he drinks wine, he is doing an action that each time he does it, is an action that it's a new ischachus of Issa. When he takes a haircut, each time he cuts his hair, there's a new ischachus of Issa. But if you're pregnant, you're pregnant. If you're tummy, you're tummy, right? So what happens over here when he's tummy? He's tummy to mismace. That means he needs hazah of 3 spitz of paraduma, day 7 of paraduma, tefillah, and then he can go ahead and continue on with his naziris. You're telling me that if he goes out and he goes back in, each time it's going to be tamei, which is a huge chiddush and which is our sugya today, right? He's in a continual state of tumah, yet nonetheless, going in, going out, he's going to mechay a little more, right? Okay. Amid base. Itmar. Amara Rav Huna. Mikro Mole Dibra Kasa. We have a pasuk. What does the pasuk say? By Nazir. La'aviv u'le'imoy, la'achu v'la'chaisoi, to his father, to his mother, to his brother, to his sister, lo yitama, v'hem b'maisam. Okay? Now, there's two really, there's a pasuk before states, Kol Yemei Haziru Lashem, all the days that he's a Nazir Lashem, Al Nefesh Meis La Yavai. On the Nefesh of a mace, he should not come. If you have the Oyes Vahad, the Gemara, it's on the side. If you don't, I'm sorry for not putting it on the screen. It says, Kol Yemei Haziru Lashem, Al Nefesh Meis La Yavai. All the days that he's a Nazir Lashem, the Nefesh of a mace, he shouldn't come on to. Good? That's Pasuk Vav. Pasuk Zayin. La'aviv, la'imai, la'achiv, la'chaisai, lo yitam alehem, b'maisam, ki nezer elakav al roishai. He's like the Kohen Gadol who wears the Nezer HaKodesh. Last week's parsha, guys, right? Like our favorite Kohen Gadol sitting there in the Kohen Gadol. Anyway, so we have ki Nezer HaKodesh. Because the Nezer of Kedusha is on his head. So he's similar to the Kohen Gadol. Now it's fascinating. There seems to be 2 lavim over here, guys. Lo yitama, and it says lo yavai. It says Kol Yemei Haziru Lashem Al Nefesh Meis Lo Yavai. So listen to the skiddush, fellas. If a Nazir would walk into a house that has a mace, he'd be chayiv 2 malchus if he's one. 1, lo yavai, coming onto the mace, and 2, lo yitama, being mitama by the mace. The chiddush, right? You think, oh, tum is tuma. No, it's not. It's more than that. The fact that it says lo yavai, there's an issa for him to bring himself to a status of tuma, and then there's the act of being tama itself, right? That would be chayiv too. That's what the Gemara is saying. So we have a mikra mole, a full pasuk. Mom is speaking it out by nazir lo yitama lem b'maisam. Dibra kosev lo yitama ukeshu oimer lo yavai. And when the pasuk says, "Kol Yemei Nizru Hashem al Nefesh Meis Lo Yavai," lahaziru ela tuma, lahaziru ela bia. Good. That's the warning. Aval tuma v'tuma, but if he's in a status of tuma, right, and he's already tamei, v'tuma loy. Says Rabbi in the name of Rav Huna that a person that's tamei in a state of tuma cannot be mitama more. Now, obviously, our mission is going to be shver on Rabbi, right? But this is what Rabbi went ahead said in the name of Rav Huna. He said in the name of Rav Huna the tumah v'tumah loy. So there's a din of layavai. That could be walking into a house. It could be mitama and layavai. But if you're in a state of tumah already, to add tumah to that, not. That's what Rabbi said in the name of Rav Huna. Rav Yosef Amar, and Rav Yosef says Elokim is a lashon of shvua. Elokim Amar Rav Yehuda, afilu tuma v'tuma. Even tuma v'tuma, he would be chayev. Even tuma v'tuma be chayev. No. So therefore, Rabba is mekel. Rabba is mekel, and Rav Yosef is machmir. Rabba is mekel, and Rav Yosef is machmir. And therefore, what? Can you add tuma to tuma? According to Rabba, no. According to Rabbi Yosef, yes, and they're reporting in the name of Rav's Talmud Muflig Rav Huna. Dam Rav Huna, Nazir Shahaya Oimed Beis HaKfaris. A Nazir is standing in the Beis HaKfaris, so he's obviously in the state of Tumah. V'hoishit loy meisai, right? umeis acher, and he's in the base akvaris, and they hand him over his mace, meaning one of the kroivim, a mace acher or another mace. He doesn't make it. So dafka. So a mace is a mace. The noga boy, and he touches it. Chayiv. He'd be chayiv for what? For being a nazir in a state of tumah, who's been mitama. Amai. Why is the nazir tameh? He's in the base akvaris. He's in a status of tumah. So why is he chayiv for contracting tumah? Elo Lav says Rabbi Yosef, name Rav Huna, Shma Mina, Rav Huna, Afilu tumah v'tumah, even tumah v'tumah. Okay, so now it's very interesting. Rabbi said his din name Rav Huna that you cannot contract, if you're tumah, you can't contract more tumah. Yes? Rabbi Yosef reports in the name Rav Huna, you could. What raya does Rabbi Yosef bring, guys? What raya does Rabbi Yosef bring? He brings a brisa. Brisa states if he's in a Beis HaKfaris and he sticks his hand out and he touches tumah, he's chayiv. Question is, why did Rabbi Yosef not bring a Mishnah? A Mishnah is much more authoritative than a brisa. A Mishnah is more authoritative than a brisa. So the Gemara asks right away, Esavi Abaya. Abaya is going to ask, Koyin shahaya loy meis munach al ksefai. If a koyin is carrying, so koyin vua did a nazir. We're saying it together, guys, right? A koyin's carrying a meis al ksefai for hoishitu loy meis. So and he pierces him one of his kroivim. By meis acher v'nogaba, and he touches it. Yachol yechayiv. I might think it's chayiv. Tamid loymar lo yechalol. It says lo yechalol, or the gersa of Tosfos lehechaloi. It's speaking about what the pasuk of Aleph lo yitama bal ba'amav lehechaloi. B'mishein mechulul, right? This the isser is someone who's not mechulul. Yotzeh this would exclude the koyin shu mechulul v'oimed. Okay, so l'chayra Abaya brings a brisa that a koyin who's tamei cannot contract more tumah. Because so now we have a stira between the two brises. One brisa says if he's standing in a Beis HaKfaris and he touches his mace, he is chayiv by nazir. By koyin who has a similar din, if he's carrying a mace on his back and he touches a mace, he's not. So one says an existing tumah could go ahead and be mechayiv. Another one says an existing tumah not. So Abaye asks Rabbi Yosef. In other words, like Rabbi's din, that once you're tumah, you can't go ahead and contract more tumah. And he brings it right from a brisa. Amalei. So Rabbi Yosef told Abaye, but Tikshi L'cham as Nisan, shver on you from this brisa is a Mishnah. Did nan hayimitama lemesim kol hayoyim. If a person's mitama lemesim all the days, and a chayiv alach is only chayiv once. However, amru loy al tetama chayiv kol achas v'achas ba'amai hamitam koim. So in other words, you're bringing a brisa to substantiate Rabbah that you can't contract more tumah. I'll ask you from a Mishnah, our Mishnah, that says you could contract more tumah, and a brisa in front of a Mishnah does not hold up. Look at Tosfos, the little Tosfos. El kasha, el al korchach. What do you have to say? Samei, a race, lashon suma, like a race. Hach brisa. This brisa says that you don't contract mutama, obviously would be displaced with the Mishnah that says you do contract mutama, like Rabbi Yosef's report in Rav Huna, not like Rabbi's report in Rav Huna. So we have machlokes. Says Rabbi, if a koyin is if a nazir is tamei, he can't contract mutama, and v'uadin koyin. Says our Mishnah, says a brisa and our Mishnah. In fact, if you go ahead and contract mutama, you would be tummy. You would be tummy. Alakasha adadi, it's shver. Okay, let me tell you the mitzias of the next teretz. It's important and it'll make things easier. Ruvain and Shimon. Okay, Ruvain is touching a mace. So Ruvain is tamei tumas mace for 7 days. Ruvain is clearly, he's metama. A mace is avi avois hatoma. Ruvain is touching him. Is metame to his mace. Shimon touches Ruvain. There is an afkamina at which point Shimon is touching Ruvain. If Shimon touches Ruvain when Ruvain is still touching the mace, Shimon will be tamei for 7 days. If that's called tumah chiburin. That's called tumah chiburin, tumah that is connected. If, however, Shimon touches Ruvain, when Ruvain is disconnected from the mace, Shimon will be tamei because Ruvain is an avatuma, but Shimon would only be tamei till the evening. Shimon would only be tamei till the evening. So again, Shimon is touching Ruvain. Either way, Shimon's touching Ruvain, right? But the question is, when Shimon touched Ruvain, was Ruvain connected to the mace or not connected to the mace? If Ruvain was connected to the mace, which is called Tumah Mechubarim, then Shimon would be like he's touching the mace, right? Like he's 7 days. If, however, Ruvain's not Tamei, and Ruvain who is Tamei Tumas mace either way, but if he's not touching the mace, then Shimon would only be Tamei Tumas Erev. Good? So now, guys, when the Nuz is in the Beis HaKfaris, it's like he's touching the mace. And therefore, anyone touches him would be Tamei Tumas 7 days. When he leaves, his level of Tumah gets less. What's his level of Tumah getting less, guys? Now he'd only be Matame a person until the evening, right? In other words, Shimon, again, a person when he's in the cemetery is mamish, he has severe Tumah. He can go ahead and be Matama, the same person of his level. When he goes ahead and leaves the cemetery, his Tumah, even though he himself has to go ahead and have paraduma spritz stay in 3-7, but his ability to mitama other is limited now. It goes ahead and he's only mitama a person at a erev. What happens when he goes back in the cemetery? So it's true, vis-a-vis him, he's only 3 and 7, and you can't create more tumah for him. But you are creating a more severe than a tumah, because now he can be mitama a person to be mitama for 7 days rather than at an erev. When he again, it's unbelievable. Vis-a-vis him, he's tumah 7 days, and you're right. He's tamei v'koyim. He's tamei, but vis-a-vis others, there is an afkamina. His tumah, when he went back into the cemetery, gets more severe. Why? Because if someone would touch him, he himself now would transmit tumah to this guy. Also, day 3 and 7. Mashen came when he's out of the cemetery, he can only transmit tumah for the person until the evening. Guys, you got it? Okay. So it's very geschmack now. Very geschmack now. The Mishnah, our Mishnah that says when he goes in and out, is speaking when he went out of the cemetery and back into the cemetery. So each time, right, it's creating a new chalois of tumah, because now you can be tameh somebody else more. With a brisa that says that no, he's not tameh more, is speaking where he's still in the cemetery. And it was meduyik. What was the brisa that Rabbi brought? The kohen has a mace on his shoulder and he touches someone else. Then what? He's not chayiv. You know why? Because his level of tumah hadn't gone down. He's still connected to the mace. Very, very geschmack. Says the Gemara now. Elakashana adodi. You have a shver, guys, the brisa to our Mishnah. Our Mishnah says you do contract more tumah. The brisa says you do not come more tumah. Like kasha, kan b'chiburin. The brisa that says you don't contract more tumah is speaking b'chiburin when what? You were still attached to the source. So his ability is still the same. He'll be matame person for 7 days. And as the brisa says, it's speaking where he had a mace on his shoulder. Kan shalai b'chiburin. Amish is speaking what? Shalai b'chiburin. Amish is speaking where you weren't connected. And since you weren't connected, when you get tummy again, you increased your ability to tama other people. That's a nucha lois of tumah. Memela, you be chayiv malchus the second time if for another or koyin. But tumah chibur now, guys, you got it. You got the teretz. It's a beautiful teretz, yeah, beautiful alumdish teretz. The tumah chibur and deraisa. You're telling me tumah. If you're getting malchus, obviously, guys, it must be deraisa, correct? It must be deraisa. Hay Amr of Yitzchak by Yosef Amr of Yanai. We only say truma b'chiburim regarding the halacha of being metama truma v'kachim. In other words, if a person who is touching tumah chiburin Shimon l'chayra, he would not be able to what? He would be able to bring a korban pesach. He would be able to go ahead what and won't be metama tumas nazir. When do we say that Shimon's metama? That's the Indian kachim or truma. But if it says Gemara V'yamet deraisa, If you're telling me it's the Raisa that you're going to contract, you're going to create it as a Malkus, Maishna, right? What's the difference between Kachim and Truma and Nazir and Isa Pesach? Bishlam, you tell me Tumas Chibur is the Raisa and everything's Tameh, great. But now you're being machalik between Truma and Kachim and Isa Pesach and Tuma. Obviously, it's not Tumas Chibur, can't be the Raisa. And forgive no, it could be the Raisa. Kan b'chiburi adam b'adam, kan b'chiburu adam b'meis. Okay, let's go. What's our case? Reuven's touching the mace, and Shimon is touching Reuven. We wanted to say Tumah b'chiburin, Shimon is Tameh for 7 days. Good. What about if Levi is touching Shimon? Yet another person. Reuven's touching the mace, Shimon is touching Reuven, and Levi's touching Shimon. Now Levi wants to go ahead and bring a Korban Pesach. Levi wants to go ahead and he's a Nazir. The halacha would be Levi would not be Tameh. Because Adam, Levi is not touching the one who's touching the mace. Levi is touching the person who's touching the person's Tameh l'mace. Masha Enkein le'inyan Kachim and Truma, we would be machmir by Levi that he's Matama Kachim and Kachim. That's so. Therefore, really, it's the Raisa. But where's the Raisa end? It ends by Shimon. It ends by Shimon. Levi who's touching that, we would go ahead. Linyan the Raisa, Linyan Pesach, Linyan Nazir. He would not be Tameh. Linyan his capacity to Matama, Levi to Matama, Kachim and Truma, we would be Matama. So therefore, in summary, we have a Mishnah. What's the halacha if a person is Tameh? And can he go ahead and come more Tameh? Well, it depends. If he's not connected to if he's connected to the source, he can't. If he is connected to the source, he could. Now, these are, even though it's Naziris guys, these are nafkaminas and halacha vis-a-vis a kohen. A kohen is nazir. Is he allowed to go into a cemetery? Now, if he's Tamei Tumas Mace, right? Obviously, what he can't. We know, why can't he go into the cemetery? It's goofa for that reason, because when he walks out of the cemetery, right, his level of tumah has gone down. So even though he's in a state of tumah all the time, by going back in, he would increase his level of tumah. It's very interesting. We have a rule in Shas, Machloikas Rabbi Rabbi Yosef, that Allah is like Rabba. Rabba, according to Rabba, that the person who's tameh cannot become more tameh, then the kohen should be able to go ahead and right. Okay, but again, there's a lot of Rabbi Bornstein spoke out a lot of Torah on this. I'm not just want to burn the shaila about by Kahanim what the din is. Okay, listen, everyone should have an easy tinus, and it's a freiliche tinus. It's a good tinus. I'm looking forward to Purim. I'm looking forward to tomorrow morning. Bez Hashem, guys, you'll be 9:15 is available. Or should I say later tomorrow? What?